there is something deeply unsettling about the question of where we came from. It's a query that has been asked by every civilization that ever existed, yet the answer seems just beyond reach, slipping through our fingers like sand. What we are told in textbooks is familiar. It's the story of evolution, of early humans emerging from Africa, migrating across the globe, and gradually adapting to their environments. The out of Africa theory is painted with such certainty, almost as if it is the final chapter in a long saga. But what if this is not the full story? What if everything we've been taught about human origins is not only incomplete, but wrong? Imagine that there's a hidden chapter of history, one that has been erased, deliberately left out of the mainstream narrative. Could it be that we've only been shown a fraction of the truth? The archaeological record is far from as clean and straightforward as we're led to believe. While traditional science points to fossil discoveries as evidence of a clear, linear progression, the picture painted is far too neat. There are gaps, big ones, gaps where the missing links should be. Some fossils don't fit into the evolutionary tree we've so carefully mapped out. Take the case of Homo floresiensis, the hobbit, a small, ancient humanoid found on an Indonesian island whose existence challenges everything we thought we knew about human development. Could it be that this species, so distinctly different from the standard narrative, holds a key to unraveling our true origins? Or is it something we are simply choosing to overlook? There are other fossils, too, that slip through the cracks of conventional thought. The question arises, what if they don't just represent anomalies in the record, but actually hint at an entirely different path of evolution, one that has been hidden, erased, or forgotten? What if the entire concept of human origins has been distorted, purposefully kept under wraps by forces beyond our understanding? This doesn't have to be a story of conspiracy, but rather of omission. History is often written by those who hold power, and it is clear that some knowledge is more easily forgotten than revealed. What if the true story of where humanity came from has been quietly buried beneath the weight of political, religious, or social agendas? What if the truth has been there all along, just waiting for us to uncover it? As unsettling as it is, these questions demand our attention. The more we probe the hidden corners of our past, the more we begin to see that what we've been taught may only be one version of a much larger, more complicated story, a story we have yet to fully understand. And so, we are left with a choice: to accept the neat, familiar tale of human origins, or to follow the trail of anomalies and contradictions that suggest there may be far more to our history than we've been told. But the question remains, who decides what history is taught? Who controls the narrative of our past? There are civilizations whose remnants defy the understanding of their time. Ancient Egypt, the Sumerians, and the Mayans all left behind structures and artifacts that suggest an advanced knowledge, perhaps even more advanced than we have today. But as we marvel at the pyramids or the intricate stone carvings of these lost cultures, one lingering question arises. How did they build such wonders with the tools they had? Were they simply ahead of their time, or did they inherit knowledge from a forgotten civilization? And if so, who was responsible for erasing that history? We've all heard of the Great Pyramids of Giza, of course their sheer scale and precision seeming to defy our understanding of what was possible in the ancient world. But what if these magnificent structures were not the beginning, but the remnants of an even older civilization? A civilization that came before Egypt, before Sumer, before even the earliest known human settlements? Could it be that these monuments are not proof of Egypt's glory, but remnants of an older empire, one whose existence has been systematically erased from history? We know that Sumer, the cradle of civilization, is often credited with the earliest known writing systems and advanced technologies. Yet, if we dig deeper, we find evidence that Sumerian knowledge was built upon even older, mysterious cultures. In fact, some researchers suggest that there was an ancient civilization that predated Sumer, one so advanced that it may have been capable of feats that we still struggle to understand today. This civilization, if it existed, left few traces, perhaps intentionally obscured by those who followed in its wake. The Mayans, too, left behind awe-inspiring temples, their astronomical knowledge rivaling that of any modern society. Yet, as much as we have studied them, there remains a gap in our understanding of their origins. How could a people so isolated and removed from the rest of the world achieve such mastery over their environment and the stars? What if their knowledge was inherited from an even older, more enigmatic civilization? And if so, why have we never been taught about it? The idea of erased civilizations isn't just about the loss of knowledge, it's about the deliberate erasure of history itself. The more we learn, the more it seems that ancient civilizations may not have been isolated in time, but connected through shared knowledge, passed down over generations. But somewhere along the way, this knowledge was lost, obscured, or intentionally forgotten. What was the purpose of this erasure? Who benefited from wiping out this hidden chapter of history? As we begin to unravel the mysteries of these ancient peoples, we start to realize that history, as we know it, may be a fragile construct, one that was shaped, and perhaps even distorted, by those who came after. The story of human civilization may not be a linear progression, but a cycle of rises, falls, and forgotten eras. The truth of these lost civilizations, once uncovered, may challenge everything we thought we knew about the evolution of humanity. Human evolution is an idea that has been drilled into our consciousness for centuries. It is a story of gradual change, of survival of the fittest, of humans evolving from apes into the dominant species we are today. But as much as we try to fit the puzzle pieces together, there are large gaps that defy the neat timeline we've been taught. These gaps raise a haunting question. Are we missing something crucial, or is there something hidden in plain sight? Something we've been deliberately kept from understanding. Take, for example, the discovery of Homo floresiensis, the so-called hobbit, found on the remote Indonesian island of Flores. This small humanoid species is believed to have lived as recently as 18,000 years ago. What makes Homo floresiensis so perplexing is not just its small stature, but the fact that it doesn't fit into the established evolutionary tree. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be human. Was this tiny species simply a freak of nature, or could it represent an entirely different branch of the human family tree, one that has been conveniently ignored? The discovery of Homo floresiensis should have been a breakthrough, a key that could unlock many mysteries of our past. But instead, it was met with silence. Mainstream scientists were quick to dismiss it, explaining away the anomalies as either the result of island dwarfism or a pathological condition. But what if the truth is far more significant than these easy explanations? What if Homo floresiensis is a piece of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that challenges everything we've been taught about human evolution? And Homo floresiensis isn't the only mystery. There are other, equally puzzling fossils that suggest humanity's evolutionary history is far more complex than we realize. The Neanderthals, for example, have long been portrayed as a brutish, primitive species, far removed from the modern human. Yet recent discoveries have shown that Neanderthals were capable of complex tools, art, and even buried their dead, challenging the idea that they were mere savages. Then there's the mystery of the Denisovans, another ancient species that once roamed the earth. We know almost nothing about them, yet genetic evidence shows that modern humans carry traces of Denisovan DNA. How did this mysterious group contribute to our evolution? And why is their story so elusive? The question we must ask is, why did scientists stop searching for these missing links? What happened to the quest for the gaps in our evolutionary history? Once, there was a fervent search for the missing link, the fossil that would connect modern humans with our ancient ancestors. But that search seems to have vanished. Could it be that the missing link is not just a single fossil but a larger mystery? A secret history that has been deliberately erased, a history that doesn't fit into the tidy narrative we've been taught? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between the fossils, between the anomalies and the gaps. If we continue to look beyond the official story, we may uncover a version of human evolution that is far more complex and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. What if the true origin of humanity is not what we've been told at all? What if the story we've been given is just a shadow of something much deeper, a story that is waiting to be discovered? As we question the established narrative, we are left with more than just a puzzle. We are left with a mystery that challenges everything we thought we knew about ourselves. And the more we uncover, the more we realize that the true story of human evolution may be something that has been hidden, erased, or simply forgotten. The ancient Sumerians left behind some of the oldest written records known to humanity, and within their texts lies a world that seems far removed from our modern understanding. At first glance, these ancient inscriptions may appear to be nothing more than stories of kings and gods, but look closer, and a hidden narrative begins to emerge, one that might just contain the secrets of our forgotten past. The Epic of Gilgamesh, perhaps the most famous of these texts, tells the tale of a king who embarks on an incredible journey in search of immortality. But it is not the quest for eternal life that captures the imagination. It is the enigmatic glimpses of an ancient world, a world filled with gods, cosmic events, and technologies that seem far beyond what one would expect from a civilization so early in human history. What if the Epic of Gilgamesh is more than just mythology? What if it is a coded message from a civilization with knowledge lost to time? The narrative is rich with references to gods who descend from the heavens, imparting wisdom to humanity. But is this just a poetic embellishment, or is there a deeper truth embedded in these tales? What if these gods were not deities in the traditional sense, but beings from another world? Could the Sumerians have had contact with extraterrestrial visitors who shared advanced technologies with them, guiding their development in ways we cannot yet comprehend? Beyond the mythological tales, the Sumerian texts contain accounts of great floods, of cities lost to time, and of kings who appear to have lived far longer than humans should be able to. These stories bear a striking resemblance to other ancient narratives from across the globe, such as the biblical flood, yet the Sumerian version predates the Bible by thousands of years. If these stories share a common origin, what does that say about the true history of humanity? Could there have been an advanced civilization before the Sumerians, one whose knowledge and accomplishments were so extraordinary that it was eventually erased from the record? And if such knowledge existed, could it have been passed down through the Sumerians or even further, hidden away in plain sight? The Sumerian texts may hold the key to a history that has been deliberately concealed. These ancient writings, seemingly ordinary, might in fact be remnants of a lost civilization, its wisdom erased by the sands of time, or perhaps by those who have long sought to keep it buried. What if everything we know about the dawn of civilization is based on a series of carefully crafted myths designed to keep the truth hidden? What if the Sumerians, with their remarkable achievements, were not just the creators of writing, but the bearers of ancient knowledge passed down from a civilization lost to history? And so, we are left with a question that echoes across the centuries. What if the Sumerian texts contain not just the history of a long-forgotten people, but the fragments of a much grander story, one that has been lost to time, intentionally obscured, or erased from our collective memory? Could these texts hold secrets that might change everything we know about where we came from? In the modern age, it's easy to dismiss the idea that extraterrestrial visitors could have shaped the course of human history. Yet, when we look at ancient texts and artifacts through a different lens, a striking pattern emerges, one that challenges our understanding of civilization's true origins. The ancient astronaut theory, a controversial idea popularized by authors like Erich von Däniken, suggests that beings from other worlds visited Earth in ancient times, sharing knowledge and technologies that advanced early human civilizations. These visitors, often described as gods, left behind traces of their influence in the form of ancient structures, mysterious artifacts, and mythologies that seem to hint at a much deeper connection between humanity and the stars. Take, for example, the pyramids of Egypt. These awe-inspiring monuments, built with such precision and grandeur, defy the capabilities of the civilization that constructed them. The question arises, how could ancient Egyptians, with their rudimentary tools, create such massive, intricate structures aligned with celestial bodies with such uncanny accuracy? Was this the work of human ingenuity alone, or could the knowledge needed to build the pyramids have come from a source far beyond our world? The theory of extraterrestrial influence is not just limited to the pyramids. Around the world, we find other mysterious structures, like the Nazca lines in Peru, that seem to serve no practical purpose except as markers for something unknown. These massive geoglyphs, visible only from the sky, hint at a connection with ancient skygazers who may have been trying to communicate with something, perhaps even beings from the stars. If these ancient civilizations were not alone, if they were visited by extraterrestrial beings, what kind of knowledge could have been passed down to them? What technologies, what secrets of the universe did these visitors share? And if this is true, why have we never been told? Many of the ancient cultures, from the Egyptians to the Sumerians to the Mayans, have myths of gods descending from the heavens, beings who imparted knowledge that was far beyond the understanding of the people at the time. These gods are often depicted as having advanced technologies, some of which seem to mirror concepts we've only begun to understand in modern science. Could these gods have been extraterrestrial visitors? If so, how much of humanity's progress was actually the result of contact with these beings? It's a provocative thought that the accomplishments of ancient civilizations, our ancestors, were not the result of independent human progress, but rather the outcome of an encounter with advanced extraterrestrial beings. Perhaps we were never the sole creators of the world's greatest monuments and technological feats. Perhaps our ancestors were simply the recipients of knowledge far beyond their time. But why, then, does mainstream history dismiss this theory? Why is the idea of extraterrestrial involvement considered so outlandish? The evidence is scattered across the globe, hidden in plain sight. From the advanced knowledge of astronomy in ancient cultures to the strange artifacts found buried beneath the earth, there are hints, fragments of a much bigger picture. But instead of exploring these mysteries, we're often told to look the other way. Could this be because the truth would change everything we think we know about our origins? Could it be that extraterrestrial involvement in human history is something we're not supposed to discover? As we examine these clues, we begin to realize that the story we've been told about our past is far from complete. The more we uncover, the more we start to question whether the ancient world was truly as primitive as it appears, or if we were once in contact with beings from another world, their influence woven into the very fabric of our civilization. The Vatican has long held a position of immense power, not just in matters of religion, but also in the control of knowledge. For centuries, the Church has been a gatekeeper of history, shaping the way we understand our past. But beneath the surface of religious doctrine lies a darker truth, one of suppression, censorship, and the deliberate erasure of ancient knowledge. In its pursuit to maintain control, the Vatican has carefully guarded the secrets of humanity's origins, hiding away texts, artifacts, and manuscripts that could reveal a far different story than the one we've been taught. At the heart of this suppression are the Gnostic Gospels, early Christian texts that were deemed heretical by the Church. These manuscripts, which offer alternative accounts of the life and teachings of Jesus, were banned and buried in the sands of time. Why would the Vatican go to such lengths to silence these texts? What truths did they contain that threatened the Church's power? Some believe that the Gnostic Gospels reveal a more complex, more mystical understanding of spirituality, one that runs counter to the Church's teachings. But others suggest that these texts might hold secrets about humanity's true origins, knowledge that the Church has long sought to bury. The Vatican's control over knowledge is not limited to religious texts. The Church has also been instrumental in shaping the narrative of human history, particularly in regard to the origins of civilization. The archaeological discoveries that have the potential to reshape our understanding of the past have often been suppressed or hidden away. There are reports of ancient manuscripts being locked away in Vatican archives, never to see the light of day, while priceless artifacts are kept out of public view. What could these texts and artifacts reveal about the ancient world? What could they teach us about humanity's lost history, the civilizations that came before us, and the knowledge that was lost in the sands of time? Perhaps the most unsettling question is, what is the Vatican afraid of? Why go to such extreme lengths to conceal knowledge that could change the course of human history? Some suggest that the Vatican's fear stems from the potential destabilization of its own authority. If the true origins of humanity were to be revealed, if ancient knowledge were to resurface, it could challenge the very foundation of religious teachings. But there are also those who believe that the Vatican is simply one player in a much larger game, a game of control, secrecy, and the preservation of power. In this view, the Vatican's role as a custodian of knowledge may be part of a broader strategy to ensure that humanity never learns the full truth about its past. What truths are locked away in the Vatican's archives? What knowledge of our true origins has been deliberately hidden from us, obscured by centuries of institutional control? As we dig deeper into the history of the Church and its role in suppressing knowledge, we begin to uncover a narrative that suggests the past has been carefully shaped, manipulated, and erased, leaving us with only fragments of a much greater story. And if the Vatican's archives are the final frontier of human knowledge, how much longer will they remain hidden from the world? The Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge the world has ever known, holds a place in history like no other. It was a sanctuary of learning, housing an estimated 400,000 scrolls filled with the wisdom of ancient civilizations, works of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and more. Scholars from across the ancient world gathered here, seeking knowledge, exchanging ideas, and exploring the mysteries of the cosmos. In its heyday, the library was not just a building, but a symbol of human achievement and intellectual pursuit. It represented the height of what was possible when knowledge was shared freely and without constraint. But then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. The Library of Alexandria destroyed, burned, lost. Some say the fire that consumed it was an accident, an unfortunate byproduct of war or neglect. Others, however, believe that the burning was not a mere accident, but a deliberate act of destruction aimed at erasing centuries of knowledge that could have changed the course of history. What could have been hidden in those lost scrolls? What ancient wisdom, what discoveries were lost to the flames that day? The idea that humanity's most significant knowledge was deliberately wiped from existence is as chilling as it is compelling. For centuries, historians and archaeologists have debated the cause of the library's destruction. Was it the result of Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE, which led to the accidental burning of part of the library? Or was it the systematic destruction during the rise of Christianity and the consolidation of religious power in the Roman Empire, when anything that contradicted the teachings of the Church was erased or hidden? Some even argue that the final blow came much later, during the rise of Islam, when the library's remnants were systematically removed, its scrolls destroyed, and its legacy forgotten. In each of these theories, there is a common thread, an effort to erase knowledge that could have threatened the powers that be. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria was not just a loss of books and scrolls. It was a loss of ideas, of intellectual exchange, and of the potential for human progress. It is said that some of the greatest minds of antiquity, Plato, Aristotle, Euclid, Archimedes, may have contributed to the knowledge stored within its walls. What if their discoveries were far more advanced than we realize, their ideas able to unlock secrets about the universe that we have only just begun to understand? What if the knowledge contained within those scrolls had the power to change the world in ways we can't even imagine today? The tragedy of the library's destruction is not just in the loss of information, but in the possibility of what might have been. What advancements in science, philosophy, or technology were we never able to uncover because of this deliberate act of suppression? What if the course of human history could have taken a very different path, one of rapid enlightenment, global cooperation, and technological marvels, had that knowledge been preserved? Some of the greatest thinkers of the modern era, from Isaac Newton to Albert Einstein, were inspired by the works of ancient scholars. But what if their discoveries were simply building on a foundation that was, in part, erased? What if the knowledge that was lost in the flames of Alexandria contained the missing pieces that could have propelled humanity even further? The thought is enough to make us question everything we think we know about the progress of civilization. Did the destruction of the Library of Alexandria erase the most important knowledge of humanity's past? What could have been hidden in those lost scrolls, secrets of ancient technologies, discoveries about the universe, or even truths about the origins of humanity? We may never know, but what is clear is that the loss of the Library of Alexandria was not just an academic tragedy. It was a pivotal moment in history, one that may have shaped the trajectory of human civilization in ways we cannot fully comprehend. The Middle Ages, a time often referred to as the Dark Ages, are painted in the broad strokes of intellectual stagnation, cultural decline, and superstition. For centuries, the prevailing narrative has suggested that Europe, in particular, plunged into a period of ignorance and darkness following the fall of the Roman Empire. Scientific progress seemed to stall, and knowledge that had been accumulated over centuries appeared to vanish overnight. But was this truly a natural decline, or was something far more sinister at play? Could the so-called Dark Ages have been deliberately orchestrated to erase centuries of advanced knowledge? It's a question worth asking, especially when we consider the role of the Catholic Church during this time. The Church, with its immense political and social power, became the dominant force in Europe, shaping not just religious beliefs, but also controlling access to knowledge. Under the Church's influence, certain ideas, especially those related to science, astronomy, and medicine, were not just ignored, but actively suppressed. The question is, why? Why would a powerful institution go to such lengths to prevent the spread of knowledge? And what were they so afraid of? One of the most chilling aspects of this period is the systematic destruction of ancient knowledge. The Church's control over education and intellectual thought was so pervasive that entire libraries of ancient texts were lost, erased, or repressed. The scientific advancements of ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt, developments in medicine, engineering, and astronomy were ignored or actively suppressed by the Church in favor of doctrines that placed faith above reason. The works of Aristotle and Hippocrates were dismissed, while Christian teachings were elevated to the sole source of truth. The once thriving intellectual culture of the Roman Empire was replaced by a church-centered worldview that regarded scientific inquiry as heretical. But this was not just about religious doctrine. The Church had a vested interest in maintaining control over knowledge and knowledge sharing. If the scientific truths of the ancients were allowed to resurface, they might challenge the power structure the Church had carefully built. Knowledge, after all, is power, and those who control knowledge control society. The more the Church suppressed ancient wisdom, the more it ensured that it could maintain its grip on the minds of the people. The intellectual blackout of the Middle Ages was not just about silencing inconvenient truths. It was about rewriting history itself. The Church's efforts to control knowledge extended beyond books and scrolls. It shaped the very way people thought about the world around them. Science was redefined as something to be feared, not explored. And as knowledge stagnated, superstition flourished, allowing the Church to step in and offer divine explanations for the mysteries of life and the universe. The great works of earlier civilizations were reduced to myths and legends, and the scientific methods that had once propelled humanity forward were replaced by theological dogma. Yet, despite the Church's dominance, knowledge did not disappear entirely. It was preserved in secret, hidden away by scholars who refused to accept the idea of intellectual stagnation. It was preserved in the works of the Islamic scholars who, during the so-called Dark Ages in Europe, kept the flame of scientific inquiry alive in the East. These scholars translated the works of Greek philosophers, preserved the teachings of ancient mathematicians, and made their own groundbreaking discoveries in fields like astronomy, medicine, and chemistry. But this knowledge was largely inaccessible to the people of Europe, where the Church's control over education kept these advancements hidden from view. As the centuries passed, a slow awakening began to take place. The Renaissance, a rebirth of learning and exploration, marked the beginning of a rediscovery of ancient knowledge. Yet, the process of recovery was not easy. Much of the ancient wisdom had been lost, and the knowledge that remained was often fragmented, incomplete, or distorted. But the question remains: how much more was lost? What might we have discovered had the knowledge of the ancients been preserved and passed down without interference? How different would our world look today if we had been able to build on the advancements of those who came before us, rather than having to rediscover them from scratch? The suppression of knowledge during the Dark Ages wasn't just an accident of history. It was a deliberate effort to control and limit human potential. And the impact of this intellectual repression continues to echo through history. As we uncover more about the past, we are left to wonder, what were we really kept from discovering? How many groundbreaking ideas, technologies, and discoveries were lost to the whims of those in power? And what could humanity have achieved if we had been allowed to explore the mysteries of the universe freely, without the constant fear of retribution? The more we delve into the history of the Dark Ages, the more we begin to see that the story of human progress is not as linear as we've been taught. It's not just about the rise and fall of civilizations, it's about the suppression and recovery of knowledge. And as we explore how knowledge was erased from history, we realize that the forces behind this suppression didn't just change the course of the past, they have shaped our present and continue to influence the way we understand the world today. As we begin to understand the depths of this intellectual repression, we will turn our attention to the secret societies that emerged during this time, preserving the knowledge that had been hidden away. The search for truth did not end in the Dark Ages. It simply went underground. In the next chapter, we will explore how these secret societies worked to protect ancient knowledge, ensuring that the wisdom of the past would survive, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. The world of secret societies is one shrouded in intrigue and mystery, with few organizations as enigmatic as the Freemasons. Though they are often regarded as little more than a fraternity of like-minded individuals, their true purpose and influence run far deeper. The Freemasons, whose origins can be traced back to the medieval stonemasons' guilds of Europe, have long been associated with power, secrecy, and the preservation of hidden knowledge. But what if the Freemasons are more than just a fraternal order? What if their true mission has been to safeguard ancient wisdom knowledge that has been deliberately hidden or erased by the authorities who control history? To understand the Freemasons, we must first consider their symbols, their rituals, and their connection to the ancient past. Freemasonry is a world steeped in allegory, where every symbol, gesture, and word carries layers of hidden meaning. The most famous of these symbols, the all-seeing eye, the compass, and square, are often seen as mere marks of membership. But what if they represent much more? These symbols have been tied to ancient civilizations that predating the Freemasons themselves, civilizations that were said to possess advanced knowledge. Could the Freemasons, in their cryptic rituals, be the inheritors of this lost wisdom? And if so, why have they gone to such lengths to preserve it? Many believe that the Freemasons are guardians of forbidden knowledge, knowledge that could change our understanding of humanity's past. The mysterious architecture of Masonic lodges, their use of ancient symbols, and their complex initiation rites point to a deep connection to older, more esoteric traditions. The Freemasons have been accused of secretly holding the keys to knowledge that has been suppressed by mainstream society. Some suggest that they are the keepers of secrets about human origins, the mysteries of the universe, and the existence of ancient civilizations that have been erased from history. But why would the Freemasons protect this knowledge? The answer, perhaps, lies in their understanding of power. Knowledge has always been a source of influence, and those who control it control the course of history. If the Freemasons truly possess knowledge that could alter the foundations of modern society, then perhaps their secrecy is not just a matter of tradition, but a safeguard against the chaos that would follow if these truths were revealed. The fear of destabilizing the established order may be the driving force behind their guarded secrecy. The question remains, what truths have been hidden by the Freemasons? Could they hold the keys to understanding lost civilizations like Atlantis or the ancient Egyptians, whose technological achievements appear to defy our understanding of the time period? Could they be protecting knowledge that would rewrite the history of humanity? As we explore the hidden symbols and rituals of the Freemasons, we begin to see that their connection to ancient wisdom is far more profound than we ever imagined. These mysteries, however, do not begin and end with the Freemasons. They are part of a larger, shadowy world of secret societies that have long been believed to shape human history from the shadows. In the next section, we will delve deeper into one of the most powerful and controversial secret societies of all, the Illuminati, and examine their role in manipulating history and controlling access to knowledge. The Illuminati, the name alone, stirs up visions of shadowy figures, hidden agendas, and secret control over the world's most important events. Established in the late 18th century, the Illuminati is often portrayed as a secret society bent on controlling global politics, finance, and, most importantly, information. But what if the Illuminati's true power lies not in their political machinations, but in their ability to suppress knowledge that could threaten the established worldview? The origins of the Illuminati are shrouded in mystery, but what is known is that this secret society was founded with the goal of promoting enlightenment and reason, at least in the beginning. Over time, however, the group's focus shifted toward more clandestine endeavors. Many believe that the Illuminati's true purpose was to control access to knowledge, ensuring that certain truths about humanity's past remained hidden from the masses. These truths, many argue, are not just historical facts, but also the key to understanding the true potential of human civilization. If the Illuminati truly holds such power, what kind of knowledge would they want to suppress? Some speculate that the group has actively worked to erase entire chapters of human history that contradicts the official narrative of human progress. The idea that the Illuminati may have erased knowledge about ancient civilizations or the true origins of humanity is a tantalizing one. What if, for example, the Illuminati has been involved in hiding evidence of extraterrestrial contact, advanced technologies, or the existence of civilizations that existed long before recorded history? The evidence for this theory is often found in the historical figures suspected of being involved with the Illuminati. From politicians to scholars, many influential individuals have been linked to the group, suggesting that the Illuminati's influence reaches deep into the world's power structures. If these individuals were truly members of a group bent on controlling knowledge, then it is not hard to imagine how they could have worked behind the scenes to suppress discoveries that would have rewritten history. The suppression of knowledge is not a new concept. After all, throughout history, those in power have often sought to control information for their own benefit. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Illuminati is their supposed role in the creation of the modern world order. The idea that a secret society could have manipulated the course of history is enough to make anyone question the reality they've been taught. Could the Illuminati have played a pivotal role in shaping the rise of modern science, the development of global finance, or even the political landscape of today? What if the truths they have hidden are not just about the past, but about the future? As we explore the dark history of the Illuminati, it becomes clear that their influence goes beyond just political power. Their true power may lie in their ability to control knowledge itself, ensuring that only a select few are privy to the secrets of the universe. In the next section, we will shift our focus to another mysterious order, the Knights Templar, and examine their role in the preservation of lost knowledge. The Knights Templar, one of history's most legendary and mysterious orders, have long been associated with hidden treasure, secret rituals, and ancient knowledge. Founded in the early 12th century, the Templars were initially a military order, tasked with protecting Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. But as they grew in power and wealth, rumors began to spread that the Templars were more than just warriors. They were also keepers of forbidden knowledge, knowledge that could change the course of history. The Templars' rise to power was swift and extraordinary. Within a few short years, they became one of the most influential and wealthy organizations in medieval Europe, controlling vast amounts of land and wealth. Their influence extended from the kings and queens of Europe to the very heart of the Catholic Church. But what did they find during their time in the Holy Land? Some suggest that the Templars uncovered ancient relics, such as the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant, which held secrets that could rewrite human history. Others speculate that they discovered ancient texts or knowledge that had been hidden away for centuries, possibly from a forgotten civilization that predated Christianity. But the Templars' influence didn't last forever. In the early 14th century, the order was disbanded under mysterious circumstances, and many of their secrets were lost to time. However, the legacy of the Templars has lived on in countless legends and conspiracy theories. Some believe that the Templars did not simply vanish, they went underground, continuing their work in secret, preserving the knowledge they had uncovered, and passing it down through the centuries. What if the Templars were not just medieval warriors, but guardians of knowledge so profound that it could alter the course of human history? Did the Knights Templar uncover the Holy Grail or other sacred relics that could hold the key to understanding humanity's past? Could they have stumbled upon ancient knowledge that was far more advanced than anything the medieval world could comprehend? As we explore the mysteries of the Templars, we begin to realize that their role in history may not have been limited to military conquest. They may have been the guardians of a deeper truth, one that has been hidden away for centuries. The secrets of the Knights Templar, like those of the Freemasons and the Illuminati, may be more than just stories. They may hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of human history. In the next chapter, we will shift our focus to the religious and mystical traditions that have shaped human understanding throughout the ages, uncovering even more hidden truths that have been buried beneath the surface. For centuries, humanity has sought to answer one of its most profound questions: where do we come from? Ancient religions offer a wealth of creation myths that try to explain the origins of life and the universe. These myths have been passed down through generations, each civilization offering its own narrative of how the world and humanity itself was born. From the Mesopotamian gods of the Sumerians to the divine beings of Hinduism, creation stories have been central to human thought and understanding. But what if these myths are more than just stories? What if they contain hidden truths about humanity's true origin? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerian tale of gods and humans, we find a creation myth that speaks to a divine influence on human evolution. The gods, who descend from the heavens, shape humanity in their image, not through natural processes, but through deliberate action. This divine intervention in human creation is echoed in other ancient myths, like the Egyptian story of Ptah, the god who created the world and humanity through his spoken word. In these tales, humans are not the result of an evolutionary process, but are instead crafted by beings with knowledge far beyond our own. Could these creation myths be encoding a truth that has been lost to time? What if humanity was guided, shaped, or even created by divine or supernatural forces? Could the evolution of our species have been steered by higher intelligence rather than by random chance or natural selection? The myths of the ancient Egyptians present a similar narrative of gods who created humanity, but with a significant twist. The Egyptian god Atum, in one myth, is said to have created humans from his own flesh, fashioning them as divine beings with a purpose. This suggests that the origins of humanity might be far more intentional and deliberate than we are often led to believe. Other civilizations, like the Mayans and the ancient Indians, have similar creation stories, where divine beings descend from the heavens and shape the destiny of humankind. In the Hindu tradition, the gods don't just create the world, they mold it with their hands, using advanced knowledge and wisdom. Could these stories be allegories for a deeper truth that humanity's development wasn't a random sequence of events, but a carefully crafted plan? This idea raises important questions about the true nature of human evolution. Are these creation myths merely symbolic stories, or do they represent a real, forgotten history of how humans came into being? What if the gods mentioned in these myths were not gods at all, but extraterrestrial beings with the knowledge to manipulate genetic material, guiding the course of human evolution? Could they have played a role in shaping humanity as we know it today? The ancient myths that have been handed down over the millennia are not just stories designed to explain the mysteries of life. They may contain encoded knowledge about humanity's true origins, buried under layers of metaphor and symbolism. What if these myths were a way to preserve knowledge that was deliberately obscured by those in power, to prevent humanity from understanding the full extent of its origins and its potential? Could the creation myths of ancient religions hold the key to understanding humanity's true origin? What if they are not just stories, but hidden truths about our beginnings, truths that have been suppressed or forgotten by those who have shaped the official narrative of human history? In every corner of the ancient world, there were societies whose spiritual practices hinted at a deeper understanding of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. The mystical traditions of ancient civilizations, such as those of Egypt, Greece, and even early Christianity, suggest that humanity had access to advanced spiritual knowledge, knowledge that connected the material world to the unseen, otherworldly realms. These mystical systems, often hidden behind layers of symbolism and ritual, point to an understanding of human existence that goes far beyond the surface level of religion or philosophy. The Egyptian mystery schools, for instance, are often regarded as the ultimate spiritual institutions of the ancient world. These schools were not simply religious gatherings, but places where individuals were initiated into deeper esoteric knowledge. The initiates were taught to understand the universe through a spiritual lens, seeking to connect with divine forces through meditation, prayer, and ritual. But the teachings of the mystery schools went far beyond simple spirituality. They hinted at an understanding of human evolution and existence that seems almost modern in its approach. The Egyptians understood the body as more than just a vessel. It was an instrument through which one could reach higher planes of consciousness, connecting the physical world with the divine. Could this ancient knowledge have been a form of spiritual technology designed to accelerate human evolution, to open gateways to higher states of being? The Greek mystery religions, such as the Eleusinian mysteries, followed similar principles. They emphasized the idea that true knowledge came not from the physical world but from inner transformation. The mysteries were hidden from the masses, passed only to those who were deemed worthy of receiving them. Initiates were believed to undergo a profound spiritual awakening that brought them closer to understanding the mysteries of life, death, and the afterlife. This emphasis on inner knowledge suggests that the Greeks, like the Egyptians, were aware of a deeper spiritual truth that could alter the course of human evolution. Could these traditions have contained knowledge about how to access higher states of consciousness or communicate with otherworldly realms? Did the ancient Greeks, through their rituals, tap into a hidden network of cosmic knowledge that allowed them to understand the true nature of reality? Early Christianity also contains mystical elements that have been largely overlooked by mainstream religious teachings. The early Gnostic Christians, for instance, believed in a secret, hidden knowledge gnosis that could lead to spiritual enlightenment and salvation. This knowledge, however, was not readily available to everyone. It was reserved for a select few who had undergone a spiritual initiation. The Gnostics believed that the physical world was not the ultimate reality, and that true enlightenment came from understanding the hidden, spiritual nature of existence. Could these mystical traditions have been the key to unlocking humanity's full potential, a potential that has since been suppressed or forgotten? What did the ancient mystery schools know about our true origins that we've forgotten? Could their rituals, practices, and teachings reveal a hidden truth about human evolution? These ancient spiritual systems were not just concerned with the afterlife, they were concerned with the here and now, with the idea that humanity could evolve and transcend its current state. In the next section, we will explore how these ancient teachings may have been more than just religious practices. They may have been part of a larger design to shape humanity's evolution, to elevate us to a higher state of being. The teachings of ancient spiritual traditions were not just designed to guide humanity toward enlightenment, they were designed to shape humanity's very evolution. In many ancient cultures, the pursuit of spiritual knowledge was not simply a means of achieving personal salvation. It was a process of transforming the human being itself. Through spiritual practices, humanity was believed to be able to access higher levels of consciousness, unlocking hidden potential that could change the course of human evolution. The idea that spiritual teachings could influence the evolution of the human race may seem far-fetched, but many ancient cultures believed that the path to higher consciousness was the path to human progress. The Egyptians, with their complex rituals and profound understanding of the soul, believed that individuals could achieve a state of divine wisdom, transcending the limitations of the physical body. Similarly, the Greeks believed in the concept of eudaimonia, a state of flourishing where one's soul could reach its highest potential. These ancient teachings suggested that spiritual growth and evolution were not separate. They were intertwined, with the development of the soul leading to the development of the human being. What if these spiritual teachings were not merely designed for personal enlightenment, but for the collective evolution of humanity? Could the rituals, symbols, and practices of the ancient world be encoded with a hidden agenda to guide humanity toward its fullest potential, to evolve into something more than just a physical being? Some suggest that these teachings were designed to unlock latent abilities within us, abilities that have been dormant or suppressed throughout history. However, over time, these spiritual teachings became distorted or suppressed by religious institutions, which saw the power of this knowledge as a threat to their authority. As religion became more institutionalized, the teachings that once had the power to transform humanity were buried beneath layers of dogma and doctrine. The true meaning behind ancient rituals and teachings was obscured, leaving only the outward forms of religion, rituals devoid of their deeper, transformative power. What if these spiritual teachings, these hidden truths about human evolution, were deliberately hidden by those in power? What if the knowledge that could have unlocked humanity's potential was deliberately erased or suppressed? Could the evolution of humanity have been guided by these spiritual forces, only for those in power to bury this knowledge, keeping humanity from reaching its true potential? As we delve deeper into the role of spirituality in human history, we begin to realize that the true story of our evolution may not be one of physical development alone. It may be a story of spiritual transformation, a transformation that has been hidden from us, erased by those who sought to control humanity's destiny. In the next chapter, we will explore how these spiritual teachings were suppressed, manipulated, and lost to time, shaping the course of human history in ways we are only beginning to understand. For centuries, the Catholic Church has held immense power over the hearts, minds, and destinies of millions. But this influence was not limited to matters of faith alone. Throughout history, the Church has also played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative of human history itself, controlling the flow of knowledge and determining what the masses would and would not be allowed to know. What truths did the Church bury in the sands of time? How much of human history has been rewritten to align with the Church's religious agenda? Could it be that the very way we understand the world today has been manipulated by the powers that once governed the most influential institution on earth. During the Middle Ages, the church was not just a religious institution, it was a political powerhouse. It was the keeper of knowledge, and knowledge meant power. Those who had access to books, manuscripts, and scientific discoveries were at the mercy of the church's doctrines. The Bible, translated and interpreted by the clergy, was the only authority. Everything else was either dismissed or suppressed. In this environment, intellectual curiosity and free thought became dangerous, for any discovery that did not fit into the church's view of the world was considered heresy. The question, then, is not just whether the church suppressed knowledge, but how systematically and ruthlessly this was done. It was more than just rejecting or ignoring certain ideas. It was about actively erasing, rewriting, and destroying knowledge that did not serve the church's agenda. Throughout history, we see countless examples of works by scholars, scientists, and philosophers who challenged the established view of the world only to be silenced, shunned, or eliminated. And these were not just isolated incidents. They were the result of a deliberate campaign to control the flow of knowledge. One of the most infamous examples is the case of Galileo Galilei. His support for the heliocentric model of the solar system, which placed the sun at the center rather than the earth, was a direct challenge to the church's teachings. Galileo's ideas, based on scientific observation and evidence, were dismissed as heretical. The church tried to silence him, forcing him to recant his views under threat of torture. Galileo's case was far from an anomaly. It was just one example of the many scholars whose work threatened the church's control over knowledge. From the burning of books to the persecution of intellectuals, the church worked relentlessly to shape human history according to its own interests. The question we must ask is, why? Why did the church go to such lengths to suppress knowledge? The answer may lie in power. Knowledge is control, and to allow ideas that contradicted church teachings would have weakened the church's grip on society. The true history of human civilization, filled with discoveries, innovations, and alternative views of the world, was not something the church wanted to be made public. In doing so, the church preserved its position as the ultimate authority on all matters of life and death, of heaven and earth. What we now take for granted as truth has often been shaped and filtered through this lens of control. But the church was not merely a guardian of religious truth. It was also the biggest suppressor of knowledge, using its power to erase alternative narratives and keep humanity's true potential hidden from view. It was an institution built not just on faith, but on control. And in this control, it decided what we would know and, perhaps more significantly, what we would never learn. As we look at history through this lens, we begin to question the validity of the narrative we've been taught. How much of our history, our knowledge, and our understanding of the world has been shaped, distorted, or hidden by those in power? What truths about our origins and our potential have been obscured, erased, or deliberately suppressed? The more we look, the more we realize that the story of human civilization is far more complicated and far more hidden than we ever imagined. In the next section, we will dive deeper into one of the most notorious periods of suppression, the Inquisition. Here, the Church's desire to maintain control over knowledge reached its horrific peak, as those who dared to challenge its doctrines were silenced in the most brutal of ways. The Inquisition, one of the darkest chapters in human history, stands as a stark reminder of the lengths to which religious institutions will go to maintain control over knowledge. It was not enough for the Church to simply silence dissenting voices. It actively sought to destroy those who dared to challenge its authority. In this pursuit, the Church initiated a reign of terror where scholars, scientists, and philosophers who proposed alternative ideas were hunted, tortured, and executed. The Inquisition, which began in the 12th century and continued for centuries, was designed to root out heresy and enforce religious orthodoxy. But it was more than just a religious purge, it was a direct attack on intellectual freedom. Those who questioned the church's teachings were accused of heresy, and their ideas were deemed dangerous to the social order. What followed was a brutal campaign of repression that stifled scientific progress and intellectual curiosity for centuries. Perhaps the most infamous victims of this campaign were those who proposed scientific theories that contradicted the church's understanding of the universe. Figures like Galileo Galilei, who championed the heliocentric model of the solar system, and Giordano Bruno, who suggested that the universe was vast and infinite, were branded as heretics for daring to challenge the church's teachings. Galileo was forced to recant his views and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Bruno, on the other hand, was burned at the stake for his refusal to abandon his ideas. These figures, and many others, were silenced not just because they threatened religious dogma, but because their ideas were dangerous to the church's control over knowledge. If the truth about the natural world was revealed, if humanity could be shown to have a deeper, more complex understanding of the universe, then the church's position as the ultimate authority would crumble. The Inquisition's role in this was not to seek truth or enlightenment, but to preserve the power of the church by stamping out the very ideas that could have revolutionized human thought. But the repression of science during the Inquisition was not confined to a few high-profile cases. Throughout Europe, thousands of thinkers, scientists, and artists were persecuted for their ideas. Libraries of forbidden books were destroyed, and entire movements of intellectual progress were wiped out. The Inquisition's legacy is a painful one, a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge has often been at odds with those who seek to control it. It raises a question that continues to resonate today. What happens when those in power are allowed to control knowledge? The damage caused by this intellectual repression is incalculable. Ideas that could have advanced science by centuries were suppressed, and a generation of minds was silenced, leaving humanity to stumble along its path of discovery. As we reflect on this dark period in history, we must ask ourselves how much progress was truly lost. What discoveries could have been made? What advancements in science, philosophy, and human understanding could have occurred if the Church had not stifled those who dared to question its teachings? The Inquisition marks a turning point in human history, a period of intellectual darkness that would take centuries to recover from. The repression of knowledge during the Inquisition is not just a relic of the past. It is a stark reminder of the dangers of centralized control over information. And as we transition to the next section, we will begin to see how these mechanisms of control persist to this day, how knowledge continues to be hidden, suppressed, or manipulated, not by burning books, but by subtler means. While the Inquisition may seem like a distant memory, the mechanisms of knowledge suppression are still very much alive. However, the methods have become far more subtle. Today, we no longer burn books or execute dissidents. Instead, we bury knowledge in the shadows, ensuring it never sees the light of day. The suppression of knowledge today takes on a quieter, more insidious form, what we might call soft censorship. Consider the fate of controversial ideas in the academic world. Today's scholars who challenge mainstream narratives or propose ideas that contradict the established order often find their work dismissed, ignored, or buried. It's not that these ideas are physically destroyed, but that they are made invisible. A paper that challenges current scientific dogma might struggle to find a publisher. A documentary that exposes hidden history might never be aired. Research that questions established beliefs about humanity's past or our place in the universe is quietly relegated to the fringes of academia, where it is ignored or dismissed as conspiracy theory. This soft censorship happens not through overt acts of repression, but through the quiet mechanics of gatekeeping. Peer review, the very process designed to ensure academic rigor, can become a tool for ensuring that only ideas that fit within the mainstream narrative are allowed to see the light of day. Scholars who dare to question the status quo are often subjected to subtle pressure. Their research is criticized, their funding cut off, their careers sabotaged. The archives of universities, museums, and research institutions may hold vast troves of suppressed knowledge, locked away from the public eye. The truth is hidden, not in a grand conspiracy, but in the quiet decisions made by those who control what gets published, what gets taught, and what gets ignored. Perhaps even more insidious is the way that knowledge is manipulated through selective storytelling. History is not just about what happened, but about how it is framed. Institutions that control the narrative, whether academic, religious, or political, have the power to shape our understanding of the past. They decide which facts are emphasized, which are overlooked, and which are entirely omitted. The result is a version of history that aligns with the interests of those in power, leaving the messy, inconvenient truths buried beneath layers of polished, sanitized stories. What gets lost when no one lights a match, but every door stays politely closed? The knowledge we are denied today may not be as obvious as the burnings of the past, but it is no less significant. The way knowledge is suppressed today is more subtle, but it is just as effective. What truths are we still being kept from? What could we learn if we were allowed to see beyond the tidy narratives we have been fed? As we explore the hidden influences that have shaped our understanding of the world, we will move forward into the next chapter, where we examine how this pattern of suppression and rediscovery continues through time, culminating in the Renaissance, where old ideas resurfaced and new truths began to emerge once again. As dawn breaks over Florence, the city's Renaissance pulse stirs gently beneath its stone streets. A few centuries ago, these very streets were teeming with an explosion of knowledge, a memory returning, like the first rays of light after a long night. The Renaissance wasn't an abrupt explosion of genius, but the rekindling of ancient flames. Scrolls, once locked away in Islamic libraries, began to resurface in the West. Byzantine scholars fled to Italy, bearing with them precious manuscripts that contained the ancient wisdom of Greece and Rome. As they arrived, Europe's intellectual fabric began to shift, and the sparks of forgotten knowledge reignited. At the heart of this intellectual renaissance stood the printing press, a democratized leak of knowledge, turning private speculation into public conversation. No longer were ideas confined to the whispered halls of monasteries or courtrooms. Now, they flooded the market in books and pamphlets. The press allowed for knowledge to spread, like wildfire, across Europe's social strata, from nobles to commoners, from the learned to the illiterate. Ideas that had once been silenced by centuries of church dogma were now accessible to anyone with a few coins. But this was more than just the birth of print. It was a time when artists, patrons, and thinkers began to channel long-lost wisdom into their works. Nobles, bankers, and even popes funded art that appeared to be merely devotional. Yet beneath the surface of sacred iconography, artists wove in symbols of ancient geometry, Platonic proportion, and echoes of Egyptian canon. The beauty of the Renaissance was not just in its visual appeal, but in how it carried secret messages wrapped in allegory that only a few could decipher. Think of the laurel wreaths carved into cathedral arches, symbols not just of victory but of wisdom passed down through the ages. The Hermetic aphorisms, those cryptic phrases embedded in scholarly texts, reveal deeper truths that were concealed from the general public. Even the star maps tucked into altar paintings hint at a knowledge of the cosmos far older than the church would acknowledge. The Renaissance wasn't just a time of rediscovery, it was a moment when history's lost whispers began to find their way back to the light. But here lies the first revelation. Some of the new ideas of the Renaissance were not new at all. They were reintroductions, fragments of ancient wisdom coaxed back to life. The great minds of this time, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, weren't inventing from scratch. They were reawakening old knowledge that had been suppressed or forgotten, ideas that had slumbered for centuries beneath the weight of religious dogma. What if the brilliance of the Renaissance wasn't the birth of new ideas, but the return of a memory? The memory of a world where knowledge was free, unburdened by the constraints of religious control. A time when art, science, and philosophy flourished unimpeded. What if the Renaissance wasn't an invention of genius, but the return of a memory? As we follow the trail of rediscovered knowledge, we are left to wonder, who were the messengers of this forgotten wisdom? Who were the hidden figures that shaped the Renaissance, planting seeds for the knowledge that would later bloom? The answer may lie in the polymaths, those who painted one thing but meant another. As we dive deeper into their works, we will see that these masterpieces were more than just art. They were encrypted messages, waiting for the right eyes to see them. The Renaissance wasn't just an age of art. It was an age of polymaths engineers who painted, anatomists who composed hymns of shadow and light. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci, who was both artist and scientist, embody the spirit of this era. But their works are more than just a fusion of disciplines. They are riddles wrapped in images. Da Vinci's anatomical studies, for example, were not just about understanding the human form, they were an exploration of the very principles of life itself. His sketches of muscles, bones, and veins were as much about unlocking the secrets of nature as they were about producing accurate depictions of the body. Da Vinci's art, his Vitruvian Man, his use of geometry and the proportions of the human body was not just a personal pursuit. It was a secret code, a way of communicating profound knowledge hidden from the masses. His paintings, like The Last Supper, are not simply religious scenes but complex symbolic works that hide deeper truths. They are layered with meaning, both for the patron who commissioned them and for those who were initiated into the deeper mysteries of the world. To read these paintings is to step into a secret tradition that sought to preserve and pass down ancient wisdom. The genius of these polymaths lies not just in their talent, but in how they encoded knowledge into their works. Take Raphael's School of Athens, where philosophers from antiquity gather under a grand architectural structure. Beyond the clear homage to Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, there is a deeper layer. The architecture, the placement of figures, and even the positioning of light in these paintings were intended to convey an understanding of the universe, an understanding that goes beyond the physical world and into the metaphysical. This wasn't just art, it was a map of hidden knowledge disguised as beauty. As we trace the lives and works of these polymaths, we begin to see that their art was a form of encrypted communication. The symbols they used, like the divine proportion, the golden ratio, and hidden numbers, were not just artistic devices. They were tools of understanding, meant for those who had been initiated into the ancient traditions. For the general public, these paintings appeared to be beautiful works of art or religious iconography. But for those with the eyes to see, they were encoded messages about the nature of existence, the cosmos, and humanity's place in it. What if a brushstroke is a cipher who is the painting really talking to? The polymaths of the Renaissance were not just creating works of art, they were preserving and transmitting knowledge that could have changed the course of human history. But this knowledge was not meant for everyone. It was meant for those who could decode the symbols, who could understand the deeper meanings hidden within the layers of paint. Their art was a carrier wave for controversial thoughts, a way of transmitting forbidden knowledge without attracting the wrath of the authorities. As we move forward, we will see that this tradition of secrecy didn't end with the Renaissance. It evolved. The foundations laid by these polymaths would lead directly to the next chapter in human history, the scientific revolution. But was this truly the liberation of truth, or was it simply a rewriting of the rulebook? Were we really freed to explore the universe, or were we still constrained by the power structures that had shaped our past? The Renaissance laid the groundwork for what would come next, the scientific revolution. With the advent of telescopes, laboratories, and academies, humanity began to see the world in a new way. The skies were no longer closed, and the mysteries of the universe seemed within reach. But as science advanced, so too did the institutions that controlled it. What happened when curiosity built a castle and then locked its own gates? The scientific revolution promised to open the doors of knowledge, allowing humanity to explore the universe with newfound clarity. The heliocentric model of the solar system, the discoveries of anatomy, the laws of physics, all of these breakthroughs were revolutionary. But as much as science liberated us, it also began to create its own orthodoxy, its own rules and canons. The very institutions that were meant to promote scientific inquiry also worked to preserve their control over knowledge. Consider the case of those scientific ideas that didn't fit into the neat models of the time. Discoveries that challenged the established view were often dismissed, ignored, or buried. Even in the Age of Enlightenment, when new methods promised to unlock the secrets of nature, the gatekeepers of knowledge still held sway. Ideas that didn't conform to the new scientific canons were rejected, even if they held valuable truths. Data that didn't fit into the established models of geology, climate, or human history was footnoted and shelved, left to gather dust in forgotten archives. Even revolution builds gatehouses. As much as the scientific revolution freed us to explore the natural world, it also created new walls that kept certain truths hidden. This isn't to say that the advancements of this period were not real. They were. But they were partial. The map of the universe grew, but so did the margins labeled, "Here be questions." What happens when curiosity builds a castle and then locks its own gates? The scientific revolution may have opened the skies, but it also created new limitations. The process of discovery was no longer a free-for-all. It became a system governed by rules, institutions, and dogmas. The new methods of science, while liberating, also established boundaries that prevented certain ideas from gaining traction, certain questions from being asked. As we look back at the history of science, we begin to see that the search for truth has always been a delicate dance. Progress is real, but so are the hidden margins, the ideas that have been dismissed, the questions that have been ignored. In the next chapter, we will explore how these boundaries have continued to shape our understanding of history, as we search for the deeper truths that have been obscured beneath the surface of conventional wisdom. Across the world, there are ancient sites, hilltop circles, buried temples, and enigmatic remnants of past civilizations that continue to perplex researchers and laymen alike. These sacred spaces, sometimes buried beneath the earth or shrouded in legend, whisper tales of a time long before recorded history. One such place is Göbekli Tepe, a massive archaeological site in southeastern Turkey, where massive stone pillars and intricate carvings tell a story of sophisticated ritual architecture, predating agriculture by thousands of years. This discovery defies everything we thought we knew about the birth of civilization. These people were not simply wandering tribes. They were artists and craftsmen, carving intricate animal figures and star symbols into stone, hinting at a much deeper understanding of the cosmos than we previously believed. What if these early temples, like Göbekli Tepe, were not the beginning of human civilization but the afterglow of something much older? What if they were a reflection of a lost knowledge, inherited from a civilization that had been wiped away by some unimaginable cataclysm? The idea that civilization is not a straight line but a cycle, one of rises, falls, and rebirths, is an unsettling thought. Could it be that humanity has experienced multiple golden ages before, each one crushed by an event so cataclysmic that the survivors were forced to rebuild from scratch? The concept of a great flood, echoed in so many myths around the world, begins to make sense when we consider the evidence for global catastrophes. Paleoclimate studies show signs of sudden, violent climate shifts and meltwater pulses that could have flooded entire regions of the Earth. These abrupt changes in climate were remembered in the stories of ancient cultures, passed down through generations as tales of divine retribution or apocalyptic events. Could it be that these ancient catastrophes weren't just myths, but real events that left a permanent mark on human memory? As we turn the pages of history, we find that many ancient cultures seem to share an uncanny understanding of such events. Stories of massive floods, the sun disappearing for days, and the earth shaking with violent tremors are found across all corners of the globe. These narratives, so similar in their themes, point to something far older than any single civilization. They hint at the collective memory of a world that had been irrevocably altered by catastrophe, a memory that was carried through time and encoded in the myths of every civilization that followed. What if the first temples were not the beginning but the afterglow of something lost? This is not a question easily answered, but it opens the door to possibilities. What if the ancients weren't just remembering the beginning of civilization, but the remnants of a civilization that had been buried, forgotten, and lost to time? Could this old inheritance be the key to understanding not just our past, but the deeper, hidden truths of human existence? As we journey deeper into the enigma of ancient craftsmanship, we turn our attention to the stones themselves, stones that have withstood the ravages of time, earthquakes, and the passage of centuries. Megalithic structures, from the pyramids of Egypt to the stone circles of Europe, continue to captivate and baffle us. The precision with which these massive stones were cut, transported, and assembled defies belief. Polygonal walls with interlocking blocks, some weighing several tons, fit together so precisely that even a blade cannot slip between them. How was this done, and why? Could it be that these builders possessed methods lost to us, forgotten techniques that allowed them to create structures of such extraordinary precision? Some suggest that these megalithic builders were aided by technologies far more advanced than the tools we believe they had access to. But what if the answer is far more grounded in the practical? What if these ancient cultures were able to manipulate the very physics of the stones themselves, using sound, resonance, or other natural forces to lift and move these immense blocks? As we explore these possibilities, experiments with ancient acoustics begin to paint a fascinating picture. Imagine a chamber where sound waves resonate in such a way that they soften the stone, making it easier to carve or lift. Some modern experiments have even shown that stones sing when subjected to certain frequencies, their vibrations carrying energy that could potentially be harnessed. Could the builders of these megalithic sites have understood this resonance, using it as a tool to manipulate materials in ways we are only now beginning to grasp? And yet, the mystery deepens. If we look closely at megalithic sites scattered across the globe, Stonehenge in England, Machu Picchu in Peru, and the Easter Island statues in the Pacific, we see patterns that suggest a shared knowledge. The precision of the cuts, the interlocking joints, and the earthquake-resistant construction methods used in these sites suggest that these ancient cultures, separated by oceans and continents, were not isolated in their discoveries. Could there have been a common knowledge base, passed down through centuries, linking these distant civilizations? If stone can sing, who taught the song? This question, though poetic, lies at the heart of the mystery. Did ancient cultures share a common understanding of the forces that govern the natural world, a secret knowledge that allowed them to manipulate their environment in ways that modern science still cannot replicate? The evidence suggests that these ancient cultures had access to techniques that have been lost to time, tools and methods that are now nothing more than fragments, waiting to be rediscovered. As we step back and consider the vast scope of these ancient sites, it becomes clear that the knowledge encoded in stone may hold the key to understanding a forgotten chapter of human history. But the questions remain. What happened to this knowledge? Why was it lost? And what can we learn from it today? The stones may hold the answers, but the real question is whether we are ready to listen. In the quiet, dust-filled corners of ancient libraries and archives, we find maps strange, weathered charts that defy our understanding of geography. These maps depict lands and coastlines that should not exist. Some show ice-free Antarctica, others display uncharted islands, or places that have since disappeared beneath the waves. How could ancient civilizations have mapped lands that were not known to them? How could they have drawn coastlines that were only visible after the ice melted, thousands of years later? One of the most famous examples is the Piri Reis map, a 16th century Turkish map that shows the coast of Antarctica without its ice sheet. How did this map, created long before modern exploration, depict a continent that had been buried under ice for millennia? The map was made using ancient sources, some of which are now lost. What were these sources, and how did they know what the land looked like before the Ice Age? The intrigue grows when we consider other ancient artifacts, like the Baghdad Battery, or mysterious gears found in shipwrecks that suggest advanced technologies far older than we're told. Each of these discoveries hints at a civilization that was not only aware of the planet's true geography, but may have been conducting exploration on a global scale long before we thought possible. If these artifacts are not hoaxes, then they point to a sophisticated understanding of the world that has been buried, either by the passage of time or by forces determined to keep this knowledge hidden. When a map remembers a shore we should not have known, whose memory is it? The maps we uncover today often bear the marks of this hidden knowledge. The Piri Reis map, along with others like the Orontius Phineus map, raises a question. Who were these ancient map makers? What knowledge did they possess that has been lost to the sands of time? And why is the story of their exploration so often ignored or dismissed by mainstream history? As we examine these ancient maps, we are faced with the eerie possibility that humanity's collective memory has been distorted. These maps are not just drawings. They are records of a time when human civilization may have been far more advanced than we have been taught. But these records, like so many others, have been erased, ignored, or distorted by those in power. The maps are merely pieces of a larger puzzle pieces that suggest a much deeper history of human exploration and knowledge. The more we investigate, the more it becomes clear. Humanity has left behind clues hidden in the stones, the maps, and the artifacts that tell a story of a civilization far older than we've been told. And as we move forward, we will look deeper into the mystery of our past, uncovering more secrets that have been waiting for us to rediscover. The scene zooms in. We're no longer looking at a broad sweep of time or space, but down into the very molecules of our being. DNA, the silent witness to humanity's journey, begins to reveal its secrets. Beneath the microscope, ancient and modern merged genes once carried by extinct cousins now rest inside us, whispering the forgotten stories of those we once shared the earth with. These whispers speak of bottlenecks and sudden expansions, dramatic shifts in population that reshaped the course of human history, but whose traces have often been overlooked. There are moments in time when humanity seems to suddenly appear, a burst of creativity, a leap in cognition, an explosion of art, symbols, and complex trade. This sudden firelight, like the dawn after a long night, wasn't just the result of a gradual climb up the ladder of evolution. It suggests a spark, a sudden leap that doesn't fit neatly into the timeline we have created. These moments of cognitive bloom didn't follow the steady, linear progression we are taught to expect. Instead, they arrived in clusters, almost as if a sudden shift of knowledge, a burst of new ways of thinking, had crossed a threshold. Could it be that our ancestors met somewhere along the way, and their genes carrying more than just biological traits exchanged something else? A knowledge, a culture, an idea. The fossil record shows these abrupt shifts when new tools appeared, when art bloomed, when symbols crossed vast distances, carried by networks that spanned continents. But where did these ideas come from? Could they have been exchanged between groups that we now know interacted but whose meetings are shrouded in silence? Rather than making grand claims or offering concrete answers, this section invites the audience to sit with the mystery. Could these bursts of human brilliance have been the result of something far deeper than gradual evolution? Could the story of humanity be a dance of both continuity, what we inherit from the past, and punctuation, those sudden leaps forward that change everything? When did a whisper in our blood become a chorus in our minds? These genetic whispers, these fragments of ancient interactions, remain present in our biology, even if the stories of how they arrived are lost to time. As we look closer, we realize that our lineage is not a straight line, but a patchwork of encounters, of shared moments between different human branches. These meetings, between different groups, were more than just cultural exchanges, they were biological too. And in these crossings, the paths of the past meet, creating the humanity we recognize today. From these early biological interactions, we begin to shift focus toward the meetings at the edge of ice, the moments when humanity crossed paths with archaic human cousins, such as Neanderthals and Denisovans. We'll see how these encounters, once thought to be isolated, shaped the very genetic and cultural makeup of our species. But who were the true teachers in these early meetings? Was it the hybrids that emerged from these unions, or the other way around? The answer might lie in the quiet recesses of human history, hidden beneath layers of time. Imagine a time when vast glaciers covered the Earth, and the landscape was a frozen frontier. As the ice receded, it revealed new spaces where different human species, modern Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans, met and interacted. These were not violent clashes between tribes, but rather contact zones, places where humans exchanged knowledge, tools, and perhaps even cultural practices. These meetings were not just biological exchanges, but cultural accelerants, where the flow of knowledge, language, and skills moved between different peoples. Picture the scene. Two communities, once isolated, suddenly find themselves face to face. What happens next is not simply the survival of the fittest, but the blending of ideas, the passing down of wisdom. Tools improve. Myths are traded. New ways of thinking emerge. And what about the stars? Perhaps they renamed constellations, passed down sacred maps of the heavens, or told stories of the world that existed before the ice. Every encounter, whether between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, or between different groups of early humans, was a meeting of minds, a transmission of knowledge. Could these ancient encounters have been the seed of humanity's most profound leaps? The introduction of new tool sets, more complex rituals, and the birth of language could all be the result of these hybridized communities. The interactions were not just about survival, they were about sharing the very essence of what made humanity human. Knowledge of tools, techniques, stories, and survival strategies were passed down through these exchanges. The blending of genetic lines was not just about physical evolution, it was about the exchange of cultural and spiritual knowledge. What if the missing teacher was a cousin and the classroom was a campfire? The hybridity of early humans suggests that what we think of as progress may have been a side effect of interbreeding, a blending of physical traits that also brought about the cross-pollination of ideas. These early encounters may not have been about domination or conquest, but about cooperation, shared survival, and shared growth. The survival of hybrid humans may have depended not only on genetic advantages, but on cultural and intellectual exchange. As we move forward, the story shifts from these human encounters to the myths that they pass down, stories that still carry echoes of these ancient exchanges. If hybridization was a force for innovation, then the myths these early humans shared must have also carried hidden knowledge. These ancient tales may not just be stories, but memory keepers, recording ancient knowledge for generations to come. The myths of ancient civilizations are full of themes that echo across cultures and continents. Stories of seed keepers, firebringers, and lawgivers, gods and heroes who come down from the heavens to teach humanity the ways of the world. At first glance, these stories may seem like mere allegories or religious teachings. But what if they were more than that? What if these myths carried the coordinates to real, ancient events, events that had been imprinted on the collective memory of humanity and passed down as cultural memory? Across the world, we find similarities in the myths of ancient cultures. Stories of a great flood, celestial visitors, and the gift of fire are shared by the Greeks, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, and countless others. These stories are too similar to be mere coincidence. What if they are not just fables, but records of a trauma, ancient events that shaped the course of human history? The sudden rise of civilizations, the emergence of art and agriculture, could all be the result of a traumatic event, a cataclysmic shift in the Earth's climate, the appearance of strange celestial bodies, or an encounter with beings from the stars. These events, so formative in our collective past, have been encoded in the myths of ancient cultures as stories that still resonate with us today. If myths are maps, where were they leading us all along? What if these myths were the survival protocols of a world that had already been shattered and had to rebuild? Stories of floods, sky visitors, and gods bearing gifts could be the echoes of a culture trying to make sense of a world forever changed by an ancient cataclysm. The sudden flourishing of human civilization may have been sparked not just by the rise of agriculture or the domestication of animals, but by the deep memory of a world that was irrevocably altered. As we look back on these myths, we realize that they are more than just stories. They are records of ancient survival strategies, encoded with the knowledge of how to rebuild a shattered world. Through them, we gain insight into the struggles of our distant ancestors, struggles that we have forgotten, but that continue to shape who we are today. These myths are not just relics of the past. They are the whispers of an ancient truth waiting to be rediscovered. As we move forward, we will continue to explore the secrets of our shared history, secrets that lie hidden in the stories of our ancestors, waiting to guide us toward a deeper understanding of who we are and where we come from. The camera drifts across a vast, icy expanse, where the only movement is the slow, deliberate glide of a snowstorm. Far beneath the surface of this frozen land, hidden from human eyes, are secrets sealed in ancient lakes, subglacial waters that have been locked away for eons. Above, research domes glow like lanterns in the distance, illuminating an otherwise stark, inhospitable landscape. Antarctica, one of the last great frontiers on Earth, has become a metaphor for the unknowns in our collective history. It is remote, expensive, and politically edited, where access is controlled and the stakes of exploration are high. The stories of Antarctica are full of mystery, yet they remain elusive, veiled by the harsh realities of logistics and geopolitics. Subglacial lakes, rich with potential for ancient life forms, remain beyond reach, carefully shielded beneath miles of ice. Meteorite-rich deserts tell tales of cosmic events that might shed light on our planetary history, but they too are guarded by the inaccessibility of the land. And beneath all this, mountain ranges, ancient and buried deep, are hidden beneath the frost, just waiting to be discovered. These are not sensationalized claims, but grounded facts. What fascinates us about Antarctica, beyond its chilling beauty and extreme conditions, is the mystery that thrives precisely because conditions demand permission. In this part of the world, secrecy is a natural consequence of necessity. But this secrecy also carries a deep invitation. What other latitudes of knowledge exist that we've yet to explore? There are places closer to home that share the same elusive quality: deep ocean trenches, closed archaeological dig sites, private collections hidden behind locked doors. These spaces are equally untapped, their mysteries contained not by ice, but by institutional gatekeepers. What if the unknown isn't unreal, but merely waiting to be uncovered by those who understand that discovery doesn't come easy, but must be earned? The limitations we face are not walls, but challenges, calling us to ask better questions, to push further, to seek answers in places often overlooked. On a continent no one owns, who owns the story? This is the question we must ask ourselves as we continue our exploration. There is a fine line between mystery and myth, and the pursuit of truth often lies at the edge of maps, those uncharted places where only a few brave souls venture. But in the end, the story of discovery is not one of individual ownership. It is a collective effort, shared by all who dare to ask questions and search for the hidden. From the frozen poles to the secret vaults of history, the boundaries of knowledge are still being drawn. As we shift from the physical frontiers of the world to the intellectual frontiers where knowledge is stored and curated, we will move from ice sheets to paper, from continents to archives. Just as Antarctica holds mysteries under its ice, so too do the archives, libraries, and servers hold knowledge waiting to be uncovered. The camera fades from the snowy white of the poles to the cool, dimly lit corridors of ancient archives. Here, in the shadow of history, documents are carefully preserved, some forgotten, some rediscovered. We find ourselves in monastery stacks, university basements, and climate-controlled vaults, where the weight of centuries rests quietly in the form of microfilm and digital drives. Each document has its own story, a story of creation, classification, and eventual neglect. In these places, knowledge is both sacred and vulnerable, carefully curated but also subject to the whims of funding, fashion, and power. What happens to knowledge when it's locked away? When funding runs dry or academic trends shift, the stories buried in forgotten boxes are often left to gather dust. Yet, as we know, some stories refuse to stay buried. In recent years, we've seen the quiet resurgence of lost knowledge, rediscovered manuscripts, declassified reels, and open-source scans that have allowed missing pages of history to be rewoven back into the tapestry of human understanding. The quiet resurgence of these texts offers a hopeful message that knowledge, even when obscured, can always be reclaimed. But there's a darker side to this. The digital age, for all its promises of information at our fingertips, has also become a tool for erasure. Information, once thought to be permanent, can vanish faster than ink in a fire. Algorithms can bury facts as easily as ash settles on forgotten pages. The immense data stored in the digital age is both a blessing and a curse. While it allows us to access knowledge in ways that were previously unimaginable, it also presents a new form of gatekeeping, a system where the truths that don't fit the narrative can simply be hidden behind invisible algorithms, buried beneath layers of content. What vanishes faster, ink in a fire, or truth in a feed? This section explores the paradox of abundance. The sheer volume of information in the modern world is staggering, yet in some ways, it makes the search for truth more difficult. In this age of digital dominance, what is left out of the conversation is just as important as what is included. As knowledge becomes more accessible, it also becomes more vulnerable to manipulation. But there is hope. In every forgotten vault, in every archive, there are still stories waiting to be rediscovered. Rediscovery is the result of patient curiosity, of continuing to ask questions even when the doors seem closed. History has shown that knowledge cannot be permanently suppressed. Through the tireless efforts of archivists, researchers, and curious minds, old documents and texts have been brought back into the light. The role of the researcher, then, is not just to uncover knowledge, but to preserve it for future generations. It is a process of rescue-saving ideas from the silence of neglect and ensuring they continue to speak long after they have been hidden. As we move from the world of physical archives to the digital ones, we realize that the work of discovery never truly ends. Knowledge is always at risk of being lost, but it is equally resilient, always finding new ways to emerge. It is the curiosity of individuals, the patience of archivists, and the passion of seekers that ensures the truth continues to resurface, no matter how many times it is buried. As we close this chapter, we must turn our attention to the future. The journey of discovery, whether in the ice of Antarctica, the vaults of archives, or the digital landscapes we navigate daily, continues. The questions we've asked so far are only the beginning, and as seekers, we must tread carefully, balancing curiosity with discernment. The act of looking changes the looker, and the search for truth is itself a living practice. To be a true seeker is to honor the complexity of the world, to question without becoming lost in the search. How do we weigh claims? How do we follow footnotes without getting swept away by rabbit holes? It requires a balance of wonder and skepticism, a deep respect for the boundaries of knowledge, tempered with the understanding that those boundaries are often shifting. We must respect the stewards of knowledge, the archaeologists, the librarians, the scientists, and the custodians, while also keeping our own curiosity intact, unafraid to ask the next question, to take the next step, even when the path isn't clear. The greatest secret, perhaps, is not in the knowledge itself, but in how we choose to seek it. The act of seeking connects us to a long tradition of explorers, thinkers, and dreamers who have come before us. It is through the pursuit of knowledge, through collaboration, through open source sharing, and through patient inquiry that we find our way forward. What if the greatest hidden truth is how we choose to seek? The final revelation isn't that we've arrived at a destination, but that the journey itself is the purpose. We must approach our search with humility, knowing that we will never possess all the answers. The oldest secret, perhaps, is that knowledge is a living, breathing thing. It changes, it evolves, and it continues to unfold as long as we remain curious. As the chapter draws to a close, the camera pulls back to the image of a tide withdrawing from an ancient shoreline. The sea leaves behind a line of shells, no single word, but a language that suggests meaning, something just beyond our grasp, waiting to be understood. The journey does not end here. It is only just beginning. The next chapter is being written by those who keep asking better questions. And that, perhaps, is the greatest secret of all.